Welcome back to the Upper Tier Podcast, the podcast that we bring you each and every week on the Dynamo Podcast Network. Head over to YouTube, drop a subscribe and like, hit that bell notification to receive the latest content. And joining me tonight is Darren McCumsky. Darren, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good, Niall. Doing good, buddy, yeah.
Good. This is your Manchester Derby preview. Super Sunday coming up this Sunday. 4:30, I think it is. Off to the Etihad with the Red Devils. Like the sacrificial lamb by the looks of things. I don't know where we start with this. I mean, yous are on like a bit of a bad run at the moment. Things just aren't working out and seem to be struggling. Players seem to be a bit jaded, stuff like that. City look like the Usain Bolt of football at the moment. No tiredness, fresh, ready to go, scoring goals for fun, putting teams to the sword without a bother. What you're thinking on this before we get into it?
I suppose, like you said, we're not coming into it on a great run of form. And I mean, results are one thing, but performances are something that we need to look at as well. And the performances have been shocking. I mean, I watched the Palace game the other night, and I'll tell you how bad it was. Me missus, who was sitting on the couch beside me, said, "Fuck me, that's bad." You know, like there was no cohesion. There was no sort of game plan. We got the ball in the final third of the pitch and nobody knew what they were trying to do. There was no, are we getting the ball wide? Are we going through the middle? Are we lumping crosses in? What are we doing? And we didn't, in the event, do a whole lot. I mean, Shaw had a little bit of success down that left-hand side. He had a couple of spells in the first half and the second half. But I mean, other than that, we looked up front, we looked extremely light. Cavani, I thought Greenwood was probably the best of the three. I thought Cavani looked like he was a guy coming back from injury, and I thought Rashford was absolutely dreadful, God bless him. He there's days when he looks unplayable, and there's days when he looks like he's never played before. And Palace was one of those games, unfortunately for us.
Yeah, I was looking at it there the other night. I was paying particular attention to Bruno, and the chap just looks exhausted. He looks dead on his feet and drained. And yeah. You know, you see him even there, he's having a go off players and stuff like that, but he obviously has a certain benchmark that he sets where he wants to perform. And the boys they seem to be so far behind him. I mean, to see, Rashford way off the boil, even having a go off Shaw when he was trying to play a little couple of intricate 1-2s and stuff like that, and Shaw wasn't really reading it. And yeah, it just seemed like a struggle for him, you know what I mean? And he was trying to G the team up, but he just couldn't, for some reason the other night, he just couldn't get them going. And, Palace are one of those teams as well. You can either go out and really destroy Palace. I know Liverpool earlier in the season, we beat them like 7-1 or something like that, or 6-1 or something like that, something crazy. But without Zaha, I mean, they're very average as well. The likes of Ayew and all, like, I mean, they're grafters. But there's not a lot about them, really,
they're a blunt instrument, really. They'll work. I mean, it's a typical Roy Hodgson team. 4-4-2. He gets 2 banks of 4. He makes it very difficult to break the team down. The work rate is phenomenal. But, I mean, other than the late chance that they had, they didn't trouble us for any length of time. At one stage, it looked like it was defenders versus attackers. But we didn't have any ideas. I think you're 100% right about Bruno. He looks like a guy that's carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders because he's carrying a team on his shoulders. Yeah. And you can only do that for so long without somebody else, putting the finger in and going, this is not what I need to give this lad a dig out. And I think Shaw's been very good in the last few weeks. But if we're looking at our left back as one of our attacking threats, we're in trouble from there. There's 8 lads ahead of him, or 6 lads ahead of him on the pitch. And I mean, other than Bruno, maybe, who had a bad game the other night. They're just not looking like they're at the races at the minute. Criticism of Solskjaer is that I still don't see a style, a playing style. I know we look like a team that likes to counter attack. But when we're at home, we might have 70% of the possession against teams. We're not a counter attacking team when we have 70% of the possession. That's, you've got to be able to do way more with the ball than that.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like a point was made there the other day. I was listening to some Man United fans on a forum, and one of the fans raised an interesting point. He said Bruno joined us, say, last January, not this January, the one before, and they were saying since he joined, his family has moved over, and his daughter, I think, and stuff like that, and they're like, since they've moved over, they've basically been in lockdown. And he said that, you know, a lot of that could be catching up on him as well. That, like, you know, she obviously hasn't been able to go out and make any friends, and they haven't been able to socialize and maybe embrace the culture. The daughter, I assume, has had to homeschool, because schools have been closed and stuff like that as well. And I'd say, like, you know, maybe in his you know, in his home life as well, there's a lot of pressure there at the moment as well. You know, the wife most days, she's probably sitting at home on her own, you know, probably bored out of her head, you know what I mean, trying to embrace this new culture. And maybe some of that is catching up on him as well, apart from carrying the weight and expectation. You know, I mean, I'm sure he sees the stuff on social media as well. I mean, you're being referred to now as Bruno FC. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So every time he walks on the pitch, he knows he nearly has to do the job of 3 or 4 players to pull that team through, you know? Yeah. I suppose just to look, I mean, obviously City on an outstanding run at the moment. If you look I always just look back at the last 6 games, so that tells the tale. 6 wins for City. United 2 wins and 4 draws. Kind of tells a stark tale as well that it's a struggle at the moment, you know. But what I would say is United at the Etihad in the last sort of 6 games have had 3 wins, 1 draw, and 2 losses. And the one thing I do point out to people as well is that, you know, when Solskjaer is just at that point of something or a decision being made, he bounces back and gets a big win and goes on a run. And he has, and like they have picked up wins against City unexpectedly. But I would be concerned this time. I mean, if David De Gea on leave now, I know Henderson has deputised pretty well, but De Gea taking time off, obviously, congratulations to him and the girlfriend, I think, or the wife. They've just had their first child, so fantastic for them.
That's right, yeah.
But you kind of ask yourself, you know, as we said, Bruno looks wiped out. I don't think Pogba's going to be available, so creativity is kind of at a minimum, really, you know. And then it's hard to see. Sometimes I look at these derby games and I say to myself, if I could take any of those players out of the United team, would any of them get into the current City team or the current City bench? And they'd probably struggle, you know. I mean, maybe Bruno might get in there. But I mean, other than Bruno, is there anyone else?
You couldn't make a case for too many of them. You know, two or three at an absolute push. Yeah. And I think even at that, you're talking about the likes of Pogba being fit. You're maybe throwing him in the mix, Bruno. And I think only because City struggle a little bit on the left side, you could possibly push on the mix. But other than that, I mean, you know, their centre halves. I mean, look at Stones and Diaz this season have just looked head and shoulders above absolutely everything in that league. Diaz for me did what Van Dijk did for Liverpool. Liverpool went, paid the big money, got Virgil in, and he solved the problem. Yeah. And City did the same. They put the money on the table for Diaz. I mean, United were apparently interested in him the summer before, and the numbers didn't add up, and all of a sudden he ends up at City. And he looks like, you know, somebody that could have done an amazing job for us as well. I mean, if you have John Stones looking like you're a player, you're some boy.
And it's mad to think he's only 23, I think. He's only a young lad. He's long enough, like, you know what I mean? So to be that mature in that position at that age, like, imagine the player he's going to be when he's 25 or 26. You know what I mean? Like, when you're thinking about in comparison, say, to Virgil, who's 27, 28, I think, or something like that.
And it's the one thing that Guardiola teams have always struggled with a little bit. Because obviously the way they hold the ball and they move the ball and stuff like that, defensively, he never had unbelievable defenders at the back. If he can keep Diaz fit, like you said, for the next 2, 3, 4 years, how do you stop these lads? You know, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, it's really going to be tough. And then you have to fear as well that they might go out in the summer and sign Haaland.
Well, I think they're gonna. I certainly think they'll dip their toe into the market for a striker. I seen this talk yesterday. Somebody threw Aguero's name into the hat, obviously because the Barcelona presidential election is coming up, and one of the candidates threw his name in. But I mean, I feel like Aguero's probably coming to the end of his time in England. Yes. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see him head off in the summer, and he won't go out, I don't believe, and have Jesus as his number one striker. I think he'll want, I know he does like him, but I think he'll want someone with goals. And if they do end up going for the likes of Haaland, I mean, if you've got Haaland, you've got the keeper at the back is an excellent keeper as well. He's got quality everywhere. I mean, he takes a lad out, he's replacing him with a lad that could actually have the spot in the team. We're taking out a lad and we're putting a lad in that's a level below. And that's the issue for United.
You never get the impression that when a player comes in, it's a weaker alternative. It's always nearly at the same level or very, very close. I mean, they've assembled such a great squad there. And with Ruben Diaz coming in, I mean, he's really that Vincent Kompany type player that they missed last year, really. Plus, what it also did is it allowed Fernandinho to be released back into the middle of the park as well, which was their biggest problem last year, was Fernandinho. Similar to us this year with Fabinho playing in defence, like it's ridiculous, you know. What you feeling in terms of formation? I mean, are you gonna play the deep line with Maguire? And I know Lindelof is supposed to be battling a back injury or something like that, but is it gonna be the deep line with Matic holding there, or Fred, or whatever it is, or are you gonna play the high line with Boy?
I suppose there's two trains of thought really. The occasions you've talked about that we were able to kind of get results away at the Etihad and stuff like that. He's actually played with 3 centre-backs and 2 wing-backs. So if Lindelof is fit, does he go Maguire, Lindelof, Boy? And have the 2 wing-backs with Sean Wan-Bissaka, pack the midfield with 3, and then play 2 up top? You're probably talking Rashford and maybe Greenwood. You'd be counting Bruno in as one of the midfielders then, with the likes of McTominay and Fred. That's how he's done things when we were going for results. He's kept things very, very tight at the back and hoped to nick something like that on the bounce. Or he can go in as he goes in week to week, which is a 4-2-3-1. I think Fred and McTominay start. I think they're our best midfield pairing at the minute. I think I've heard Nemanja Static they call him. Just holds the ball very well, you know, but his mobility is extremely poor for me. And in a game where we are going to be overrun, I don't think he can give away a set of legs in the middle of the park. Yeah. So you're talking about the 2 lads, and if it's a straight shootout, personally, I'd like to see Boy in there with Maguire. I think he's looked excellent for us. You know, our two of our problem positions this season have been De Gea and Lindelof. And I mean, the other night against Palace, we go Boy and Henderson, and it looked an awful lot more solid. And on nights that they have played, it's looked an awful lot more solid. So for me, it might not be a bad thing that Lindelof's may be injured and De Gea is away, because these lads need games together to maybe prove to Ollie that they are an option going forward, you know?
I think certainly with Boy in the team, there's less of a concern about protecting the back 2, isn't there? Even in terms of Wan-Bissaka coming in a lot tighter, or Shaw coming in a lot tighter. Yeah. So it creates that sort of narrowness in that 18-yard box. I think with Boy in there, there's more of a confidence that he's a bit more athletic and he has a bit more nous about him. So you don't have to kind of protect them as much. But I mean, I suppose from Solskjaer's point of view, is it like, does he feel he needs to go out and get the 3 points, or does he feel he'd be happy just walking away with a draw? You know what I mean? Is he just going to pack it out there and just try and, kill it down? But I'd be very concerned about United if they play that game and they think that they can hold City out for 90 minutes with that kind of pressure. Especially mentally, with the way the players at United look kind of drained at the moment. They know they're on a bit of a slide, and it's a bit of a concern, you know what I mean? And I just think to expect to hold out that team for 90 minutes with all the attack, Mahrez, Sterling, potentially Aguero, Bernardo Silva. I mean, they've so many guys at the moment that can potentially put the ball. And that's the thing with City this season. That's why they're so successful, because the goals are coming from all over the pitch. There's no 30, 40 goal player in there. Everyone is chipping in with goals. So I think in the last couple of matches, their defenders have been outstanding, and they've been the ones that, I think both are.
They're playing with it. They're playing with a false 9. They're not actually playing with a striker on the pitch, and they're looking extremely potent, which is scary, you know. But when you've got the likes of De Bruyne, you've got Fernandinho kind of shoring things up behind. You've got Mahrez, you've got Gundogan, who again this season has looked outrageously good, and he's added the goals. Last weekend they didn't start Mahrez and Sterling, if I remember rightly, because he was able to bring in Foden and Ferran Torres, and then I think he played, so you don't know even what formation he's going to go with, because I've seen a few lads upset, obviously, with the fantasy football and stuff the other day. We did double game weekend. and he left lads out in the second game. Did they suffer? 4-1 home win, you know?
Yeah, no, they just look so potent. And yeah, what you thinking? I mean, if City were to go out and put you to the sword and give you a proper hiding, I mean, where does that leave you? What you thinking? Obviously, you're staring down into like a tough game against AC Milan then in the Europa League. And then you're looking like by the time David De Gea comes back or Paul Pogba comes back, you could potentially be out of the Europa League. You could be potentially out of the Cup. And, you know, in a precarious position in the league where you could have dropped down to third or fourth. So it's on a knife edge really at the moment, isn't it? United's season. It's
big time. I think in the next couple of weeks, it's going to be really important for us to pick up results. I think maybe in the Europa League, I know Milan have rested a couple of players in the Europa League. So obviously they were top of Serie A for a little while. Now Inter have gone back top. Is it a thing Milan will decide that they're looking for a top 4 position? That's going to be enough for them. And if they do, they might take their eye off the ball in the Europa League. But I mean, for United, we got to get back to bread and butter of winning games in the Premier League right now. I know we've had a little patch of games where we kind of Everton at home, we Chelsea away, Palace away, City away. They're not very, very easy games. And we're picking up points, but we need results because we had a buffer. We had a buffer on those lads in third and fourth, and it's disintegrated now. And if, you know, you're looking at the likes of Spurs, you're looking at the likes of Everton, Leicester, Liverpool, these guys go on 4 or 5 games in a row. Very, very quickly, we'll be fifth in this league table. Yeah, and you got your backs against the wall then to try and grab a spot, you know?
Yeah, and you would sort of think like, you know, any of those teams put, as you said, 2, 3, 4 games together and they shoot right up into those positions. And then, like, you know, potentially you have Leicester with a bit of free fall there at the moment as well. West Ham are doing okay. They're really batting above themselves, really, and it's whether they can sustain it. Chelsea, I think, you know, are nailed on for the top 4. I think they're really finding form. Tuchel in there with 8 wins out of 10 and 2 draws or something like that. So he's on fire at the moment. But you would fear for United that if they did drop out of the top 4 at any stage, whether they'd have the backbone to fight back in there and get it back in there again. You know what I mean? That would be the only concern. I mean, I suppose the other way of looking at it is they probably have a very good chance of winning the Europa League if they can get past Milan. You know what I mean? The chances are they might draw, maybe if Arsenal and Tottenham or Rangers get through, they'll probably draw one of them in the next round. Who knows? But they'd have a great chance of winning the Europa League, which would be that backdoor into the Champions League as well. So the league might not put them under too much pressure. But obviously, you don't want to be throwing all your eggs.
You don't want your eggs in that basket. No, 100%. I think that's a risky game to play. I thought it was a risky game to play when Mourinho was doing it. Yeah. You know, so I wouldn't fancy it myself. I mean, especially when you come to a final, you know, in a cup final, anything can happen.
Oh yeah, it's a roll.
You could go in there against a really, really poor team and end up being beaten, and all of a sudden, you know, that Champions League spot is gone, and that means massive financial implications for the club. You know.
Yeah, I think to be honest with you, if you didn't at least get to the final of the Europa League, you know, and you fell out of the top 4. I think that could spell the end for our friend Ollie, couldn't it? Like, I mean, it really would be, you know, after being up there for so long, I mean, being top of the league, being in kind of a title race, then dropping off. And, you know, if you were pumped out of the FA Cup, I think it is, and if you were pumped out of the Europa League and then dropped out of the top 4, they'd have to start asking questions, wouldn't they, really?
I think he needs something this season. I do think he needs, you know, I think he needs the Europa League or he needs an FA Cup. Obviously we had the run of semis last year. I think we do need an FA Cup maybe. And if you know, if we finished third, won an FA Cup, I think United fans would say wasn't a bad season. It wasn't probably the season we thought it was going to be come February. But I mean, I don't think there's any United supporters that are under any illusions out there. We do need additions, you know.
Yeah, I think considering the start you had as well, I mean, if you go back and look at November and stuff like that, you were way off the pace.
Way off the beating track, yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
100%.
Yeah. And I think in fairness to Solskjaer, there has been improvements there, but whether they'd be at the level that the United fan base or hierarchy would be happy with, you know what I mean? Obviously, they're under a lot of pressure because they're losing a fortune at the moment. I think what did they post yesterday? 500 million in debt now. They've gone over 500 million in debt, euro-wise, I'm talking 509 million euros or something, you know what I mean? Which is a massive amount of debt to be carrying. And we know why it's in there. It was structured through the Glazers in terms of buying the club. But, at some stage you have to be answerable for that debt. And with no fans and, match day revenue and stuff like that, you're clearly just relying on broadcasting revenue coming in, more or less, and merchandise, I suppose. So, like Europa League broadcasting revenue just doesn't cut the mustard for a club the size of Man United,
Not at all.
So, go on, give us a prediction. What are you predicting?
I think I'm gonna just say City will nick it. I'm gonna say 2-1 to City. I think we'll be in it for a lot of the game, but I think maybe we'll probably, as you said, just be a little bit jaded. We've had the 3 away games on the road in the week. I think they look jaded on Wednesday night. I don't think they look much better on Sunday, for my money. And I'm gonna say 2-1 City, which isn't not good having to say it, but I think logically, and that's where I'm at the minute, man.
It'd be interesting to see if Solskjaer can get them to bounce back and, even put in a performance deserving of a draw, not a clinger on, like, you know what I mean? But I think you have to go with City in this one with the form that they're on, but you know what I mean? I mean, Solskjaer could pump the boys up to break that. What's it? It's 21 wins on the trot potentially for City, was it? And 21 away wins for you? Was that what it is, or something like that? 21 undefeated or something like that?
Yeah, 21 away, yeah.
So
20 undefeated away.
Both sort of records on the line. I'm hoping it's going to be a high-scoring game. I'm kind of thinking City maybe 4-2. I'm hoping I'm going to get an open game. But I've often preached about open games on this show, and we get a drab 0-0, so I'm hoping I hope there's going to be goals early to open up the game, and then I hope both teams are just going to go for it. So I'm thinking City 4-2.
I think you've high hopes for 6 goals, man. Yeah, I think the worrying thing for me would be if there's 6 goals on Sunday, you're on the end of a really bad defeat. Because I don't see us putting many past City. Yeah. I think at an absolute push, we can score 2. I don't see us putting any more past Ederson, Diaz, Stones, even Laporte if he plays. I really don't. I think the lad Cancelo as well has looked absolutely outrageous.
I'm sort of going. I'm going on the trickery of Rashford maybe creating a penalty or something like that, or maybe Greenwood with a bit of trickery. I also think if you play Cavani could be a handful for those 2 boys as well, because he's one of those sort of awkward pests to mark. That kind of way. He's kind of one of those gritty old centre forwards.
I think I'd be surprised if Cavani played. I don't see him play. I don't see him playing Cavani unless we play the 4-2-1-3 or 4-2-3-1. Yeah. I think if he plays the 5-3-2, he won't be in the 2. I think he'll go with younger legs, the likes of Rashford and Greenwood, and then he'll probably keep Cavani. That if he can hold it tight, he'll bring him on with 25 minutes to go and try and nick something. Yeah, 100%. I just think that Cavani's legs are going to struggle if he's chasing the ball for 60 minutes, 65 minutes. You'll end up having to hook him. I wouldn't be surprised to see him start Daniel James, to be honest with you. Yeah. And again, that's a sad indictment of where this United team is. That of late he's been one of our better players. Yeah. But I think he may start James because he knows physically he can do it. And he's also done reasonably well for us against City in the derby, So I think he may go James, maybe Rashford, something like that.
Well, it's certainly going to be an intriguing tie, and definitely one warranted of a Super Sunday. I mean, these derbies, they're always sort of special occasions, just unfortunately there's no fans. But as always, Darren, brilliant coming on, and thanks for giving us the preview.
You're very welcome, man.
As always, head over to YouTube, smash that subscribe and bell notification button on the Dynamo Podcast Network. And as always, support Irish podcasting, and we will talk to you again soon. Thank you.